All right, let's dive into some really fascinating stuff about about how we learn. Today we're going to be exploring Taxshila Awakening, and honestly, it's got me rethinking like everything I thought I knew about education. The source is an article called "From Passive Student to Active Learner: The Taxshila Awakening." It was published just this month on a blog called Taxshila Page, and the author Shiva Narayan is a big name in something called learnography. Have you ever felt like you were just memorizing facts instead of truly understanding them? Well, Taxshila Awakening argues that the way we're taught might actually be to blame.
Yeah, for sure. The article goes into how traditional education can make us dependent on teachers instead of, empowering us to learn independently.
Okay, so picture this. A classroom where the teacher talks, you listen, and then you take a test on what you hopefully remembered, right? The article calls this passive learning, and it argues that it's missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. It's not that traditional education is all bad, but think about it. What skills do you actually use in the real world, right? You need to be able to think critically, solve problems, and adapt to new situations. Passive learning, it doesn't really prepare us for that.
Exactly. It's like the difference between reading a recipe and
Yeah.
and actually cooking a meal. You can memorize all the ingredients and steps, but until you get your hands dirty and start experimenting, you're not really learning how to cook, right?
That's a great analogy. And that's where Taxshila Awakening comes in. It aims to shift us from being passive recipients of information to active knowledge builders. It's all based on the principles of learnography.
Okay, so what is this learnography thing all about? It sounds pretty intense.
So it's actually it's a brain-based approach to learning. Learnography recognizes that our brain aren't blank slates just waiting to be filled. It's about, leveraging how our brains naturally learn to make the process more effective.
So instead of fighting against our brain's natural tendencies, it's about working with them.
Exactly, yeah. And one of the key elements of Taxshila Awakening is something called brainpage development.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. It's like building your own mental models directly from the, from the source material, like books, research papers and all that. Have you ever struggled to, to really grasp a concept just from listening to someone talk about it? This direct approach, creating your own mental maps of the knowledge helps bypass that.
That's right, yeah. The article explains that brain page development activates specific brain circuits, the substantia nigra and motor circuits, which are involved in, learning and movement for faster learning and better retention.
Wait, so it's like learning how to ride a bike. You don't just hear about it. You actually have to get on the bike and engage those muscles.
Exactly, yeah. And that brings us to another element, miniature schools. Imagine small groups of students, like a mini classroom, where they take turns teaching each other. Think about it. You probably remember concepts better when you when you had to explain them to a classmate, right? That's the power of active learning that Taxshila taps into.
Totally. I always learn more from study groups.
Yeah.
Than from just rereading my notes.
Yeah, it's not just about understanding the material either. Miniature schools also, they help develop leadership and teamwork skills.
All right, next up is motor science. And honestly, this one really caught my attention. It's like they're saying, that we need to move our bodies to learn better. Tell me more.
Well, essentially, motor science and learning means incorporating physical actions, like writing, drawing, even acting things out. The article explains it's about engaging more of your brain in the learning process instead of just, passively absorbing information. You're making it an active experience.
So instead of just highlighting passages in a book, I should be drawing diagrams, writing summaries, maybe even talking to myself about what I'm reading.
Yeah, you got it. It might sound a little strange, but it's all about, it's all about taking advantage of how our brains are wired.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Brain page development, miniature schools, motor science. It seems like Taxshila is, hitting all the key areas for effective learning, right?
Absolutely. And there's one more crucial element, personalized learring. Instead of a one-size-fits-all curriculum, Taxshila Awakening emphasizes individualized learning paths.
Okay, I've heard a lot about personalized learning, but wouldn't it be Like a logistical nightmare for teachers to tailor everything to each student.
That's a valid concern,
Right.
and we'll definitely discuss the the challenges of implementing this. But the idea is that students can build their BrainPage modules and learn at their own pace, ensuring they really understand each concept before moving on.
So no more feeling rushed,
Yeah.
or bored in class because you're either ahead or behind everyone else. I can see the appeal of that. But how does this all actually play out in terms of like learning outcomes?
Well, the article claims that Taxshila Awakening leads to some pretty impressive results.
Okay, spill the tea. What kind of result are we talking about here?
Well, the article claims that this method can help students, retain more information, understand it more deeply, and even become more independent learners.
Hold up. Eliminate dependence on teachers. Doesn't that sound a little, I don't know, risky?
It's definitely a bold claim, and the article, acknowledges the potential for controversy. But remember, it's not about, getting rid of teachers entirely. Think of it more as a shift in their role.
So less lecturing at the front of the classroom and more, mentoring and guiding students as they learn independently.
Exactly. Teachers would still be, they'd still be essential, but their focus would be on facilitating the learning process rather than simply, delivering information.
I guess that makes sense. But, let's be real. It's a pretty big jump from how most of us were taught. What kind of long-term impact could this have on students?
Well, the article, paints this picture of a future where students are, more self-driven, adaptable, and resourceful. They'd be able to learn new things on their own, solve problems creatively, and think critically about, the information they encounter.
Wow. Those are some serious 21st century skills. But is it really possible to achieve all of that just by changing the way we learn?
It's a big question. And the article doesn't shy away from the complexities of education systems. But remember, the core principles of Taxshila Awakening, they're rooted in how our brains are wired to learn. By tapping into those, those natural mechanisms, it aims to make learning more effective.
And, dare I say, enjoyable.
Okay, I'm sold on the enjoyable part. Who wouldn't want to learn more effectively and have fun doing it? But I have to ask, even if this works, on an individual level, can we really scale something like this to transform entire education systems?
That's a valid concern, and the article does highlight some potential challenges. For one, there's the issue of mindset. Both teachers and students would need to embrace this new way of thinking about education.
So we're talking about a major cultural shift, not just changing teaching methods, but also changing attitudes and expectations. Exactly. And that would require, a lot of training and support, not to mention a willingness to step outside of, comfort zones. There's also the question of assessment. How do you evaluate students who are, learning at their own pace and following individualized paths?
Traditional tests and exams probably wouldn't cut it up.
The article talks about, exploring alternative forms of assessment that focus on demonstrating understanding and applying knowledge in real-world situations. Think portfolios, projects, maybe even peer evaluations.
This is making me realize how much our current system emphasizes just memorizing facts and spitting them back out. It's not really about
just understanding
or applying what you've learned.
Yeah, it's definitely a different way of thinking about education. And Taxshila Awakening is, it's really prompting us to consider what we truly value in learning. Do we want students who can, simply regurgitate information? Or do we want students who can think for themselves, solve problems, and adapt to a, rapidly changing world?
Okay. You're really making me think here. This isn't just about some new teaching techniques. It's about, redefining what it means to be educated.
Precisely. And while there are definitely, hurdles to overcome in implementing something like Taxshila Awakening, it's an incredibly thought-provoking concept. It makes you, question assumptions and imagine new possibilities for the future of learning.
So where do we go from here? Is that just a utopian ideal, or could it actually become a reality?
Well, the article argues that the future belongs to active learners, those who can, constantly learn, unlearn, and relearn as the world around them changes.
And it seems like Taxshila Awakening is all about cultivating those exact skills and mindsets. Right?
Absolutely. It's about,
Yeah.
empowering students to become lifelong learners who are, adaptable, resilient, and able to thrive in a future that we can only imagine.
This is all so fascinating. But I have to admit, a part of me is still wondering if it's, too good to be true.
Yeah.
Are there any potential downsides or like unintended consequences that we should be considering?
Of course. It's important to be realistic and to think critically about, any proposed solution. The article does address a few potential challenges, like the resources required to, to implement such a system and the need for ongoing research and development.
That makes sense. And I imagine there would be, a lot of pushback from people who are invested in the current system. Change is never easy.
Yeah.
Especially in something as fundamental as education.
Absolutely. And that's why it's, crucial to have open and honest conversations about these ideas, to weigh the potential benefits against the potential challenges, and to consider all perspectives.
So even if Taxshila Awakening doesn't become, the dominant model of education overnight, it's sparking some important conversations about how we learn and what we should be striving for.
Exactly. It's a call to action, challenging us to, reevaluate our assumptions and to explore new possibilities for empowering learners of all ages.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little bit of that Taxshila Awakening myself. I'm definitely going to be thinking about these ideas long after we finish this deep dive. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect.
Yeah.
On what we've learned and explore some, practical takeaways. I'm already kind of like thinking about my own learning habits in a new light. This whole concept of being an active learner has, really resonated with me.
Yeah. And remember, it's not just about changing the whole education system or whatever. It's about empowering individuals to become, more engaged and self-directed in their own learning journeys.
So even if I'm not in the classroom anymore, I can still apply these principles.
Oh, absolutely. Whether, you're picking up a new hobby or diving into a new field or even just, trying to stay informed. Those core concepts of learnography can make a big difference.
Okay, so how do I actually put this into practice? What are some tangible steps I can take to become a more active learner?
Well, for starters, try going straight to the source material whenever possible instead of relying on, summaries or interpretations. Engage directly with the original book or the research paper or the work of art,
That's a good point. It's kind of like what we're doing with this deep dive on Taxshila Awakening.
Yeah.
We're not just taking someone's word for it. We're going right to the article and exploring it for ourselves.
Exactly. By engaging with the source directly, you're forced to think critically, make connections, and form your own understanding. It's much more active process than just passively absorbing information.
Makes sense. What else? What else can I do?
Well, remember the concept of motor science. Don't just read or listen. Get your body involved. Take notes, jot diagrams, even talk out loud about about what you're learning. It might feel a little silly at first, but engaging multiple senses helps.
Helps solidify the learning.
So instead of just highlighting passages in a book, I should be summarizing them in my own words.
Yeah.
Creating mind maps, maybe even acting out scenes.
Exactly. It's about, turning learning into a dynamic experience rather than a passive one. Okay. I can definitely try that.
Yeah.
But let's be real. It's easy to slip back into old habits.
Yeah.
Especially when life gets busy. Any tips for staying motivated and keeping that active learner fire burning bright?
And the key is to to make learning enjoyable. Tap into your natural curiosity. Explore topics you're passionate about, and don't be afraid to experiment with different learning styles. If textbooks bore you, try podcasts, documentaries, online courses, or even joining
a local club or group.
Yeah.
You've given me a lot to think about. But after this deep dive, I'm feeling more excited about learning than I have in a long time.
That's fantastic. Remember, learning isn't just about accumulating facts. It's about expanding your horizons, challenging your assumptions, and becoming a more engaged and informed citizen of the world.
Well said. So even if Taxshila Awakening doesn't revolutionize education overnight, it's definitely planted some, planted some seeds for change. And who knows, maybe those seeds will grow into something truly transformative.
It's certainly a vision worth striving for, a future where learning is, not just a means to an end,
Yeah.
but a lifelong journey of discovery and growth.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So it's all our listeners out there, no matter where you are on your learning journey, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop, seeking knowledge.
And remember, the most important lesson is this: never stop learning.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.